finals. Yi Lin looked at Hikato and the representative from the Alto Chamber of Commerce and said, "Both parties, please report your names. Let me reiterate, this match will only end when one party concedes defeat or loses his fighting strength. If you think you can't beat your opponent, please say so you don't make a grave mistake. Tang C." Hikato shouted his name in a concise yet assertive manner. Alto Chamber of Commerce, Jia shows. Begin. Yi Lin suddenly rose into the sky and announced the beginning of the first match. This wasn't a fight like the Continental Elite Youth Soul Master Tournament. It was a real life and death fight. This was an underground tournament. There weren't that many rules to protect the competitors. Jia Shows pointed his toes to the ground before he charged towards Hikato. His body shone with 3 yellow and 3 purple soul rings. Evidently, he was a 6-ring soul emperor. He waved his warblade, and it lit up with a blinding, golden red spark. The surprising thing was that Hikato didn't fire his cannon. He even set it down. It might be because he couldn't do so in time, or he just didn't want to fire it. It was as if the cannon was too heavy, and Hikato couldn't lift it anymore. However, his soul rings rose too. 2 yellow, 2 purple, and 2 black soul rings. There was a huge commotion beneath the stage when everyone saw that his 6 soul rings were of the optimal combination. It was very rare for even a soul master to have the best combination of soul rings, much less a soul engineer. The members of the Duskwater Alliance were naturally greeted with a delightful surprise. However, the members of the Alto Chamber of Commerce and Common Alliance turned grim. Jia Shows naturally saw Hikato's soul rings. As he looked at his opponent's soul rings before looking at the colors of his own soul rings, he realized that he was in trouble. His unstoppable momentum earlier suddenly met with an obstacle. But even though his aura was slightly suppressed by Hikato's soul rings, he didn't slow down. He quickly charged across the center line. As he waved his warblade, he slashed it towards Hikato. Suddenly, this golden red blade formed a long arc that advanced more than 40 meters before it slashed towards Hikato's head. Its majestic aura was about to slash the stage in two. The air suddenly became hotter. Jia Shows' warblade was very exquisite. While it was a close combat soul tool, there were 9 formation arrays in it. As it was strengthened, it was almost as strong as a class 7 close combat soul tool. Furthermore, it could cover a longer distance than most ordinary close combat soul tools. It was a soul energy weapon. However, Hikato wasn't anxious at all. His legs moved swiftly, and he dragged his rapid-fire cannon along with him. As he shifted, he avoided the slash. A long trench was immediately slashed open as the energy from the warblade struck the ground. The 2 sides of the trench had turned completely red, and they were even melting quickly. This showed how frightening the elevated temperature of this warblade was. However, the spectators couldn't be bothered about the strength of this warblade right now. This was because they were stunned as they were looking at Hikato. Hikato lifted his cannon and charged towards Jia Shows. A long-range, offensive-type soul engineer was running straight toward a close combat soul engineer. What was going on? Beneath the stage, Hua Yuao's eyes had already opened wide. As he watched the situation on the stage, he revealed a slight smile on his face behind his human-shaped soul tool. The real fool is the one who thinks Second Senior is a fool. In terms of fighting strategies, Second Senior is not inferior to anyone. He's trying to catch him off guard. Jia Shows also didn't expect Hikato to charge towards him. In addition, Hikato was extremely fast. It was very shocking. Even while he was carrying a rapid-fire cannon, Jia Shows felt as if he were illusory as he burst over. Bei Bei and Hua Yuao weren't the only ones who knew the Tang Sect's Ghost Shadow Perplexing Track. Hikato had been in the Tang Sect for a long time. The 2 main Tang Sect secret techniques that he cultivated were the Purple Demon Eyes and Ghost Shadow Perplexing Track. Even while he had a cannon on his shoulder, he still performed his Ghost Shadow Perplexing Track perfectly. Not only this, but the barrel of his cannon also started to light up. Jia Shows was also only stunned for an instant. In the next moment, he swept his warblade and slashed it towards Hikato's waist. At this point, Hikato was still around 15 meters away from him. He was confident of killing his opponent through a series of quick attacks. Jia Shows also didn't believe that Hikato could fire his rapid-fire cannon under such a situation. However, he also discovered that there was an additional cigar in Hikato's mouth just as he swept his warblade. It was a dim golden cigar. Hikato was expelling smoke from his mouth, and a layer of golden light also shone from his body at the same time. Hikato lifted his rapid-fire cannon and used his body to bear the attack of the warblade. Dang. Hikato was still advancing forward as a loud and clear sound resonated. The warblade brushed past his body, but was blocked by a golden barrier. Invincible barrier. He has flouted the rules. This was what Jia Shows thought at first. However, Yi Lin had no intention of ending their fight. At this point, Hikato had already closed up the gap. Hikato flung his cannon forward towards Jia Shows. Jia Shows was shocked. He quickly used his warblade to block the attack. After all, he was a close combat soul engineer, and he was very confident in his physical strength. However, he didn't know one thing. There were gifted people in this world. Hikato was one of them. Although he wasn't as strong as Wang Hua, he was still superior to most ordinary soul masters. Bang. Jia Shows reeled back. He felt a huge force exerted towards him before the hilt of his warblade struck his own chest. He quickly activated the second state of his warblade. His entire warblade turned a piercing, golden red. Although he couldn't effect a long-range attack after his warblade changed to this second state, the close-range destructiveness of his warblade was greatly increased. However, he immediately saw Hikato's cannon barreling towards his chest. Jia Shows lifted his warblade straight without any hesitation before he used his scorching blade to strike Hikato's cannon. However, he was petrified at the next moment. That was because the light in the barrel of the cannon had suddenly gone off. Rapid-fire cannons derived their name from their ability to fire rapidly. On a battlefield, rapid-fire cannons were used to contain enemies through their firepower. A single strike of a rapid-fire cannon wasn't too strong. For example, a cannon shell fired from Hikato's class 7 rapid-fire cannon was as powerful as a class 6 explosive cannon shell. Of course, Hikato's rapid-fire cannon was different from other rapid-fire cannons in terms of its size. If a cannon was too large, it would be too bulky. However, there was a correlation between strength and size. The cannon shell of his rapid-fire cannon was at least 3 times the size of a normal cannon shell. Naturally, it was of greater strength. After he struck his opponent with the barrel of his cannon and forced him back, Hikato immediately pointed the barrel of his cannon toward his opponent. It was a cannon. It wasn't a close combat soul tool, but a cannon that could be fired. However, Jia Shows seemed to have forgotten this point after he was forced backward. Under normal circumstances, his golden red blade could slash a rapid-fire cannon in half as if it were a block of butter. However, Hikato placed his rapid-fire cannon right in front of him. No matter what, it was still a cannon. Boom. Everyone could clearly see a very bright ball of light shining between Hikato and Jia Shows. The tremendous explosive force and recoil caused Hikato to be flung back along with his cannon. Jia Shows' warblade was indeed very strong, and was worthy of being a close combat soul tool that was almost class 7. His golden red blade was still pointed straight up, and the cannon shell that was fired towards him had been slashed in two. However, the 2 halves of the cannon shell still struck him. This tournament was different from any ordinary fight between soul engineers. The soul engineers could only use the soul tools they created. This meant that Jia Shows didn't have an automatic protective soul barrier with him. While the cannon shell was slashed in two, it was still a cannon shell. The pieces would still hurt when they struck his body. Jia Shows was also flung backward. However, it wasn't his body that flew back. It was scraps of his flesh. His entire upper body had disappeared. Only his legs were left standing on the ground. His warblade swayed for a few times before it fell to one side. The light from his blade also slowly faded away. As his golden red blade hit the ground, it melted. The entire venue went silent. Even though everyone knew that there were no rules in this underground tournament, they still found it uncomfortable when they saw such a bloody scene in front of them. A living person's upper body had been directly blown apart by a soul cannon. At this moment, dry coughs could be heard all around the stage. Apart from the vice leader, the rest of the members of the Duskwater Alliance stood up at this point. Even the number 98 competitor who hated Hua Yuao and Hikato couldn't help but cheer at this point. A long-range soul tool could be used in this manner, fired straight in front of one's opponent. It was too much. Hikato flew back due to the backlash generated. Right now, he had already landed steadily on the stage. He didn't even look at Jia Shows' remains. He lifted his cannon, turned around and walked towards the people from the Duskwater Alliance. The first match has ended. Tang C is the winner. After hearing some weeping sounds, Hikato seemed to think of something. He suddenly stopped in his tracks and walked towards Jia Shows' remains. He picked up his warblade and looked up at Yi Lin. After this, he asked, "Chief Judge, can I keep this as a reward?" Yi Lin's mouth twisted a little. It was his first time seeing someone using such a fighting style. However, Hikato's ferocious fighting style still left a deep impression on his mind. Tang C and Tang Wu. He must be here with Tang Wu. It seems he is also quite gifted. Yes. However, you can only use the soul tool that you've created in the later rounds. All right. Hikaiju followed Huo Yuao's instructions and tried his best to say as few words as possible. He carried his cannon and the warblade on his shoulders as he left the stage. After he left the stage was cleaned up. Following this, Yi Lin said, "The second ranked and seventh ranked competitors, please come up to the stage." Huo Yuao controlled his human-shaped soul tool to walk forward. When his soul tool came to the stage, it bent its legs slightly before leaping up. With a boom, it landed on the stage. It looked slightly clumsy, but its aura was pressing. On the other side, the lady in blue from the Common Alliance ascended to the stage as well. The situation wasn't very beneficial to the Alto Chamber of Commerce. One of their soul engineers had been eliminated, and another had been killed. Even though the representatives from the Common Alliance didn't place much in the technical test, all of them still managed to advance. They were much more fortunate. Clang, clang, clang. Huo Yuao's human-shaped soul tool made its way over in front of Yi Lin. Huo Yuao nodded at Yi Lin. The lady seemed a little fearful, but she still walked over slowly. Her body swayed in an elegant manner as she walked over. She seemed to be about 18 or 19 years old, and she revealed a terrified look on her face. Yi Lin said, "Both parties, please report your names." Tang Wu. Huo Yuao's cold voice sounded out. "My name is Lan Ruo. Brother, you won't kill me like you did earlier, will you? I'm a little scared." Lan Ruo's body trembled slightly. She also looked slightly pale, as if she were truly frightened. Huo Yuao didn't make a sound. He turned around and walked toward his side of the stage. Beauty trap, beauty trap. This lady from the Common Alliance had found the wrong target. Huo Yuao had suffered from such temptations several times before. For example, there were Juzi and Wang Qia, who were both stunning. However, he still remained loyal to the love of his life. Lan Ruo was just a lady nurtured by the Common Alliance. In his eyes, her soul had already been corrupted. Her actions couldn't possibly draw his pity. Lan Ruo's eyes flashed with a frustrated look. She had always believed that she was charming, but Huo Yuao wasn't even moved. She felt that he was too much. Humph. As she thought of that, she also turned around and retreated to her position. The soul tools created by the three ladies from the Common Alliance were all very special. They were completely opposite to Hikadu's soul tool, as they were small and portable. The Common Alliance nurtured such outstanding young ladies because they had some kind of mission to complete. Bulky and large soul tools didn't suit them. On the contrary, small close combat soul tools were the most effective for them. As a result, they were all agility-type soul masters. Begin. Yi Lin rose into the sky once again. This time, he fixed his gaze on Huo Yuao. He had to see what Huo Yuao was going to do for himself. As he announced the start of the fight, Lan Ruo immediately moved. She gently pointed her toes to the ground and drifted towards Huo Yuao like a small, blue bird. She was very graceful, and seemed like she was dancing. However, it was clear that her dress was very special as she moved. As her dress flew slightly upward, her smooth, white skin could be subtly seen. Her flowing sleeves didn't even cover her arms. As she lifted her arms, her sleeves rippled slightly, and her lotus-like arms began to sway. Lan Ruo's soul tool was a dagger. The smaller a close combat soul tool, the more difficult it was to create. This was especially so for advanced level close combat soul tools. Her dagger was completely black, and no soul power undulations could be seen from it. As it sat close to her wrist, it was hidden from view as she danced. Clang, clang, clang. Huo Yuao's movement still seemed a little clumsy. He took big steps forward and lifted his arms at the same time. He adopted a posture that seemed to suggest he was ready to engage in close combat. Everyone knew that he didn't have any offensive soul tools with him. He only had his human-shaped soul tool. Furthermore, he was disabled. His legs couldn't move, and it was already a feat for him to control the movements of his human-shaped soul tool. Lan Ruo didn't charge right at Huo Yuao, but only slowly came closer to him by revolving around him. Huo Yuao's soul tool could only follow her movements clumsily. Yi Lin furrowed his brow. It seems like this human-shaped soul tool is still a half-completed product. While he can control it with his mind, the mechanical components can't compare to formation arrays in terms of offering agility to the soul tool. However, we can still learn from his human-shaped soul tool. If we can enlarge it and equip it with more offensive soul tools, he'll be pretty strong on the battlefield. It might be good for him to lose. A setback might spur him to work even harder in the future. Lan Ruo was getting closer to Huo Yuao. She revealed more and more of her skin as she danced. She was almost like a fairy as her blue dress was juxtaposed with her fair skin. Along with her captivating looks, she could easily make one distracted. It was a pity that she couldn't see Huo Yuao's expression as he was hidden in his soul tool. His gaze was clear, and a dim golden shone from his eyes. He wasn't bewitched at all. Suddenly, Lan Ruo lifted her thigh, and her entire dress flew upward. As she turned, she showed off her butt to Huo Yuao. At the same time, she made another sudden turn and brushed past Huo Yuao's left flank like a butterfly. If he were any ordinary person, he would be stunned by this sudden view. This was also the opportunity that Lan Ruo was looking for. After she brushed past Huo Yuao, her seduction turned into killing intent. Her eyes flashed with a cold and vicious look as she leapt up. She held onto her dagger with both hands, and 3 of her 6 soul rings, 2 yellow, 3 purple and 1 black, shone at this point. They were all unleashed as she strengthened her soul power. Her pitch black dagger also turned dark purple. A 3-inch purplish sword light stabbed towards the back of Huo Yuao's head like the fangs of a venomous snake. It was an attack that she had been preparing and accumulating for some time. Lan Ruo was very confident in her offense. Not to even mention that Huo Yuao's human-shaped soul tool seemed so clumsy. A soul master couldn't possibly dodge this attack of hers. Lan Ruo's greatest strength lay in the offensive strength of her close combat soul tool. Compared to a long-range soul tool, a close combat soul tool's offensive might was very great. Her dagger even sacrificed all long-range offensive abilities and contained the element of darkness within it. It was even able to destroy a soul. It could damage all protective soul barriers and invincible barriers. Not only this, but it could pierce through all metals. It was even stronger than most ordinary class 7 soul tools. If it stabbed someone, they would definitely die. However, Huo Yuao's eyes shone brightly just as she made a move. Just as her dagger was about to stab the back of his head, Lan Ruo saw 8 streaks of white light shining from Huo Yuao's back. An impact force suddenly appeared. This impact force wasn't very strong. She was only forced back by 1 foot, given her 6-ring cultivation. However, Huo Yuao's body also moved forward 1 foot. 2 feet wasn't considered much to a soul master or soul engineer. However, it made a huge difference to Lan Ruo's lethal attack. As a purple light flashed, her attack struck nothing. At this point, she felt things had turned blurry in front of her. The seemingly clumsy figure in front of her had vanished. The spectators had initially thought Huo Yuao was going to be in huge trouble. At this moment, they were stunned when they saw Huo Yuao controlling his soul tool to deftly perform a turning action. As it turned, light shot out from its back. At the same time, a streak of light also shot out from its waist. It drew a very weird arc in the air, and it managed to flip itself behind Lan Ruo. As it flipped, it punched towards Lan Ruo's shoulder. Lan Ruo reacted quickly. After she discovered that Huo Yuao was missing, she used her left foot as an axis to make a turn. At the same time, she bent her upper body backward and avoided Huo Yuao's fist. She also pointed her dagger upward and attempted to graze Huo Yuao's arm. Huo Yuao wouldn't let her get what she wanted. He lifted his arm and kicked his right leg out towards her supporting leg. At this moment, his human-shaped soul tool didn't seem clumsy at all. It was extremely agile. Yi Lin was astonished. This kid was pretending all along. Lan Ruo's close combat abilities were indeed great. Even in such an unfavorable situation, she was still able to control her own body. She used her left arm to support herself. She was completely arched by now. She used her support leg to spring up and kicked Huo Yuao's arm. She was trying to exploit her momentum to dodge his attack. It was a pity that Huo Yuao didn't dodge this time. He punched her thigh. Bang. Lan Ruo screamed in pain. As she smacked her left hand against the ground, she quickly slid back. She was a soul emperor, but Huo Yuao was a soul king with twin martial souls. His human-shaped soul tool was made entirely from rare metals. After Huo Yuao poured his soul power into it, it became extremely resilient. She couldn't easily overcome it with her strength. In addition, Lan Ruo clearly sensed an extremely cold aura entering her left leg. Right now, her left thigh had gone completely numb, and she couldn't feel anything there. Huo Yuao had no intention of letting her go. Suddenly, his body shone with golden light, and an indescribable aura was released from his body. His silvery white human-shaped soul tool turned completely golden, and the majestic aura that it released put a lot of pressure on Lan Ruo. At this moment, Lan Ruo felt as if she were facing a tidal Douluo. She couldn't help but scream again, and she quickly retreated as she jumped on one leg. Huo Yuao snorted coldly. He stepped forward with his left leg and punched his right fist out. Suddenly, a bright golden fist projection flashed in the air before it disappeared. Instantly, it came before Lan Ruo. She frantically used her dagger to resist the fist projection, and it was eventually destroyed. However, the gold that spread from this fist projection still struck her body. She felt as if her body had fallen apart. An indescribable spiritual trauma seemed to cause her to be rapidly paralyzed. Her internal soul power seemed to have been restrained by that invisible force, and her mind seemed to lose its connection to her body. The figure in front of her was too strong. She wasn't hurt by soul power or the fist. She was hurt by spiritual power of Huo Yuao's sovereign's descent. Huo Yuao had the soul power amplifier that he had created. The formation arrays of his amplifier were above his right fist. It enabled his human-shaped soul tool to unleash his strongest attack. His sovereign's descent was unleashed through his amplifier, which greatly enhanced the strength of his attack. However, Huo Yuao was also slightly regretful. If his amplifier was large enough to be placed in front of his chest, his overall abilities would grow by another level as he enhanced all of his soul power. However, he was still delighted that his attack was successful. That was because he knew that he was slowly grasping how a human-shaped soul tool greatly enhanced the soul master's abilities. It wasn't just about the soul power amplifier. There were many other methods that could be used. The entire venue went silent. Huo Yuao won just like that. He even won comfortably. His human-shaped soul tool was actually so quick and deft. The last strike involved his own self-invented fighting technique, which was very rare even among soul masters. Lan Ruo, a class 6 soul engineer and 6-ring soul emperor, lost her fighting strength after she was struck by the fist. Of course, no one knew that Huo Yuao had used his ultimate ice on Lan Ruo earlier. She suffered because she was careless. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been so easily struck by his sovereign's descent earlier. Tang Wu wins. Yi Lin descended from the sky, stunned as he looked at Huo Yuao. There was also a look of admiration on his face. He succeeded. He's really succeeded. From the agility of his human-shaped soul tool earlier, I can tell that the combination of mechanical components and formation arrays in his soul tool is already perfect. His soul power amplifier isn't too impressive though. After all, the difficulty of making such an amplifier depends on the quality of materials available. Such a human-shaped soul tool can enable a disabled person to fight with so much agility. This is a success. His Highness will certainly like a human-shaped soul tool like this. Everyone from the Dusk Water Alliance felt extremely at ease now. Hikato and Huo Yuao had both competed, and both of them didn't even give their opponents a chance. They had already taken half the spots in the semi-final. The Dusk Water Alliance was in a very favorable situation now. The third match was between the Lady in Yellow from the Common Alliance and the last remaining soul engineer from the Alto Chamber of Commerce. Both parties didn't intend to give up on this opportunity, and they fought very intensely. Eventually, the Lady in Yellow attained victory. She defeated her opponent using her long sword, a close combat soul tool, and advanced to the next round. The last match was between Huang Zheng and the Lady in Red from the Common Alliance. Huang Zheng, who always seemed very composed, finally demonstrated his ruthlessness in this match. His claw-shaped soul tool was useful for both close range and long-range attacks. At the same time, he was determined enough not to be seduced by his opponent. Eventually, he chopped off one of his opponent's arms and forced her to concede defeat. The semi-finalists were Hikato, Huo Yuao, Huang Zheng and the Lady in Yellow, who was called Yu Yi. However, Huo Yuao and Hikato were troubled after the draw was made for the semi-finals. They drew each other. They were going to face each other in the semi-final. It's good like that too. You'll have enough time to rest. I'll forfeit this round. Hikato announced his forfeit, and Huo Yuao successfully advanced to the finals. Nangongwan was delighted with Hikato's decision to forfeit. This proved that Tang Xi was inferior to Tang Wu. In addition, Tang Wu could conserve his fighting strength for the final. Of course, it would be great if Tang Wu and Huang Zheng were the finalists. The Dusk Water Alliance would win no matter what if that happened. The second semi-final round was Yu Yi from the Common Alliance versus Huang Zheng from the Dusk Water Alliance. Both competitors went up to the stage. Yu Yi was the prettiest among the 3 representatives from the Common Alliance. However, she wore a cold look at this point. While Lan Ruo lost to Huo Yuao, she didn't suffer any injuries. However, the Lady in Red was critically hurt by Huang Zheng. Even if her amputated arm was reattached, it might not be as agile as before. Yu Yi coldly glared at Huang Zheng and sternly said, "If you are a man, you'll fight until the end. Don't concede defeat." Huang Zheng laughed coldly. "You'll have the opportunity to tell whether I'm a man in the future. Begin." Yi Lin couldn't be bothered with their trash talk. He immediately announced the start of the fight. Yi pointed her toes to the ground and burst towards Huang Zheng like a patch of yellow clouds. Huang Zheng rested his claw-shaped soul tool in his right arm. As he lifted it slightly, the 3 sharp claws at the front shot out 3 feet long light blades. These light blades were used to chop off the arm of the Lady in Red earlier. As Huang Zheng lifted his claws, he shot his light blades towards Yi like bolts of lightning. Not only could his light blades be used for close combat, they were also very effective for long-range attacks. After locking onto the opponent, these light blades spiraled out and intercepted Yi from different directions as they drew arcs in the air. They weren't easy to be dodged. Furthermore, they were extremely sharp and very explosive. Resisting them without any protective soul barriers was bound to deplete the target greatly. Huang Zheng called them soul chase claws. After unleashing his 3 sharp blades, Huang Zheng unleashed yet another 3 light blades from his claws. He was advancing quickly towards Yi. Yi wasn't afraid as she faced these spiraling light blades. Earlier, she had already witnessed Huang Zheng's fighting style. The Lady in Red had suffered as the blades blew apart. Yi wasn't going to make the same mistake. She turned her wrist, and a long sword appeared in her grasp. This sword was around 3 feet and 3 inches long. The blade of her sword was 1 inch thick, and it emanated a bright golden light. There were 7 stars on the sword, and 3 formation arrays. While there were only 3 of them, they were very small. Miniature formation arrays such as these could only be made using advanced techniques. She pointed her sword forward and gently waved her blade in the air. A blurry sword projection was created. Ding, ding, ding. As 3 clinks sounded, she accurately struck the 3 sharp blades that were spiraling towards her. These 3 blades were stopped in the air. However, Yi seemed to turn illusory as they were about to blow apart. She was like yellowish fog, and drifted forward instantly. The speed that she managed to achieve was almost close to the standard of an instant teleportation. Boom, boom, boom. 3 explosions sounded simultaneously. Yi had already avoided the danger. As Huang Zheng was advancing towards her, he managed to close the gap between them. After witnessing his opponent's outstanding swordplay and speed, Huang Zheng was slightly stunned. However, his abilities weren't ordinary either. His eyes shone, and he continued to take big steps towards Yi. It was important to note that he was from the Holy Ghost Church. Yi's body flashed with an illusory light projection. Huang Zheng didn't unleash his light blades again. The 2 of them quickly met in the center of the stage. Yi evidently hated Huang Zheng. As she shook her wrist, her sword formed countless streaks of lights. These streaks of starlight were glowing brightly, aimed at Huang Zheng's eyes. Huang Zheng didn't panic. He straightened his claws and started to move them. A layer of dim green light shone from his claws, forming a shield that blocked the sword lights. His claws were adept at both attacking and defending. Not only were they very explosive, but they even possessed great defensive strength too. It was as strong as a class 6 protective barrier. As he blocked the sword lights, Huang Zheng's 3rd purple soul ring lit up. Thanks so much for watching this video. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Also leave a comment down below with suggestions on what novels to read.